another episode of GovTech Today. I'm Russell Lowry.
And I'm Jen Saha.
And together we're going to try and bridge the gap between .com and .gov. Today we've got the subject of privacy teed up, and intimate concern for every Californian and a huge topic. As we begin to frame the conversation, how do we begin to think about the privacy conversation, the regulatory framework in California? What's the starting point for thinking about that?
So we do have a really solid foundation in looking at California's privacy laws and rules, and that comes actually from Europe, and that's the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, as everyone calls it. California, a few years ago, passed the California Consumer Privacy Act, CPA.
Got to get our acronyms down.
I know. And
so GDPR, and then is the European version of the regulation, and then
CPA is ours. Don't worry, I'll make it more complicated. Okay. And so CPA took effect in 2020. It's been amended and added to a little bit since then with the California Privacy Rights Act, CPRA, more acronyms for you. And that just took effect in 2023. So basically what California has done, we're ahead of the game, as is typical in California as it comes to regulations and protections, just behind Europe, actually. So the CCPA really sets into place a framework for how our individual personal data is protected.
And what are the outlines of that protection? So CCPA gives the guidance on my social security number, my driver's license, my DNA, my digital fingerprint in the world.
Yep. What it really does is it empowers you as a consumer to have control of that data about you. So you have a right to know if a company is tracking that data for you, or if they have personal information that they've collected about you. You also have the right to ask that company to delete that information. I don't want you to store it and hold it forever. You have the right to opt out. So I don't want you to collect that information about me. And there's non-discrimination in there. So businesses can't discriminate against people who have said, I don't want you to have my information.
So if part of my business model is collecting the information and aggregating the data, if someone doesn't want to participate in that aspect of my business, I still have to serve them as a customer.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Non-discrimination.
So this really has the most impact on people who collect that data. So data brokers.
We have 500 plus data brokers in California. I've done business with many of them, so I'm familiar with that. But they're the primary entities that are regulated by the CCPA.
Correct.
Okay.
The benefits are all to the consumer, right? Now I have far more control than ever before over my personal data and what's collected and stored. So the California Privacy Rights Act, CPRA, also put into place an agency that is going to help track and regulate all of this. That's the California Privacy Protection Agency, CPA.
Okay, so CPA is the agency.
Yep. So they're there to implement and enforce these privacy laws.
Okay, so let me get my acronyms. Let's do an acronym rundown. So GDPR is the European regulation that sort of went first. The California version of that is the CPA. And then we amended the CCPA with the CPRA. And then we created a CPPA agency to enforce the So we got our acronyms
we
right,
love
which
acronym.
are always necessary to
acronym.
navigating state government. If you want to bridge .com and .gov, you're going to have to navigate the world of acronyms. So acronyms. So where do we stand in that regulatory process with the CPA?
So the Privacy Rights Act and the Privacy Protection Agency have some mandates. They do have to pass some regulations. The people that govern the Privacy Protection Agency is a board. It's not the governor like the rest of our agencies and departments in state government. There's some heavy hitters on this board. One of the sort of grandfathers of the initial Privacy Act in California, Alistair McTaggart, is on that board, along with a bunch of other people that are really invested in this. That agency right now and the board that directs them are looking at regulations to help define a lot of these terms, right? What data is it especially that we're tracking? What do the penalties and the fines look like? What are the fines for violations involving minors versus involving adults? That's something they're going to treat differently and have more of a focus on. And then risk assessments, regular audits are also under the charge of this agency. So they're going to have a lot of work to do. Frankly, they're staffing up right now. There were a lot of vacancies and they're coming together as an agency.
When you talk about the regulation, it makes sense when you're talking about the data brokers. But I think when most of us think of privacy, I doubt most of our listeners or certainly your average Californian may not even know there's such thing as a data broker. They're thinking about, I'm using my iPhone, the apps that I'm using, I'm clicking accept when I want to navigate the web these days. I'm accepting terms and conditions that like 3 people in the universe have ever read. How are the companies? What's the relationship between internet companies, which it used to be 20 years ago, you knew what an internet company was. Now everybody has a website, everybody's online, everybody's generating more data than ever and using more data than ever. How are the companies tracking or engaging with this regulation? Is it really just the brokers or does it impact their businesses as well?
The Privacy Protection Agency has really taken a pretty broad lens at their duties and what they need to define.
No way.
Shocking.
Shocking.
In fact, they're even getting into current discussions about machine learning and AI and all of the algorithms that are used. So the companies are engaging, certainly. They're also working through trade associations to engage. I think it's a valuable, hey, I don't want to be out in front of this as a data broker. I want what's best for everyone as well. Let's get together in a type of coalition or association to help shape these things in a very collaborative way. I think there's a ton of value in that. I think it's something that really helps government too. They don't want to call every 500 data broker that's out there. Wouldn't it be great if there were like a data broker association that brings them all together and has them in the same room and is speaking with one voice? Ongoing, I would say, is where we're at with this protection agency and how this is all going to unfold. You have to figure that we're also in the middle of a huge AI initiative in the state of California. We're already looking at a lot of these issues from the administration, from the legislature. There's a number of bills out there. How does all of that mesh together? Who's in charge of what and which rules are we following is all to be determined at this point. But I will say, you noticed it. I will say the most impactful thing that I have noticed after CCPA passed is when I'm on the internet. And I get a pop-up on virtually every website I'm on that says, this website tracks your cookies. Are you okay with that? Yes, no, I want to limit my cookies. That's like CCPA in action for all of us.
And it'll be interesting to watch because as the rules are being written, it seems like there's been this titanic shift. Everything is still moving at full speed. As we figure out the rules, companies are moving, AI is moving forward, machine language is moving forward, the governor's ordering implementation of AI. There's RFPs on the street right now for AI implementation projects and more to come. It just seems like everything's moving at warp speed. How is business, let alone individuals, expected to track it all?
I think in a lot of cases, it is a situation of the cart getting a little ahead of the horse. And no offense to the horses out there, but the horses don't move exceptionally fast. Even with an independent agency like this, there are quarterly board meetings and deliberations and public comment. All of this is required and takes a ton of time. When you look at, we're trying to implement, but we're also trying to figure out the regulatory format, the governance, the structure of all of this, it is a little bit like building a plane as you're flying it.
That my sense of foreboding that it's not organized and orderly isn't out of place. It accurately describes the current situation.
Totally. And I don't think it's unique to AI. This happens with any sexy, flashy new technology that's out there. We want it and we want it now. That's great. Hold your horses. We've got to figure out how to regulate this. We've got to figure out how to structure it. Most of the legislation I'm seeing really is to regulate it. People are concerned about the negative impacts AI, machine learning, even some of these privacy laws could have on our ability to do business in the state, our ability to use these technologies. So yeah, it is a little bit backwards as far as like how you would do things if you had unlimited time. Fortunately, the commercial market moves really quickly, right? Like
Right.
we're on ChatGPT 4, soon to be 5, next week is 6. All of this stuff is moving at warp speed, and government is not moving at warp speed.
And do we want government moving at warp speed on this? Is it even possible? Is there a base level of understanding you need in order to regulate properly?
It's a very good point. A government never wants to be the first to try something, right? Because then you're the first to fail. And when you're government, you have a lot more responsibility than some of these. No problem. We'll do a POC. We're in the commercial sector. We lose a few $1,000,000. No big deal. That has real life impacts when you're in government. It means that a foster child is out of a home. It means that someone's not eating. Maybe more so in government than any other area. We're incredibly risk averse. So being on the cutting edge is never where government wants to be.
Right. It seems as we move forward in this, you've got companies that are moving as fast as they can to innovate for customer products and deliverables, whether that's .com or .gov or individual deliverables. Everything is incorporating an AI component. And government is trying to protect issues like privacy, copyright. We'll see the legislature moving. How should businesses and or individuals go about tracking this? It's not their day-to-day responsibility to track government, yet it's something that they've required to do.
Certainly being aware and on top of what your requirements are as an individual business, making sure the solutions that you're implementing or selling to government are aligning with where government's going. It's a very protectionary stance right now from government. Just be aware of that and be ready to talk about your algorithm, how it reduces discrimination, how it advances equity and the government's goals. I think that today, that's the best you can do, is just get ready, know that it's heading that direction, and be ready to comply with what those rules may be. In the meantime, also work towards helping shape those rules, and that's engaging in an association, working with a lobbyist or a government relations professional to help make sure that your viewpoints, no matter how big or small they are, represented in what industry is saying to government on these issues.
I've noted that throughout my time in government, 30 plus years, and the organizing part of getting people organized in order to effectively engage with the public, finding somebody to testify or appear on either Capitol Hill or at the legislature is pretty easy. But the hard work of the lawyering that goes on behind the scenes, the shaping of the regulation, the building a relationship of trust. When you have more knowledge than maybe the regulator has and building that relationship, it's not the front and center headline grabbing thing, but it's absolutely critical to what we do.
You definitely don't want to be on the bad side of the regulator. I think that's a common misconception is no, we don't tell the regulators anything because we're afraid of them and they're the regulator. This happens even in state government. We're not telling DGS that because they regulate our contracts and we don't want to get in trouble. I think a more collaborative and open-minded way is working with those regulators to help them understand, because you're right, there is a huge lack of understanding. This is all cutting edge technology. I'm not sure anyone in state government completely understands AI. I'm not sure anybody in the world completely understands AI and all the implications there. So when we look at sensitive personal information and how that plays into the whole grand scheme of things, it is really important to work collaboratively as opposed to we're going sideways and we're going to do what we're going to do.
It's a bottomless topic, but I want to stick a pin in. As we record, legislators have gotten all of their ideas into Leg Council, the lawyers that draft the bills for the members in the legislature. And then shortly, a month from now or less, over the next month, the bills will be being introduced, assigned a number. We'll get a digest for some of them. Others will be what they call spot bills, where we just know they intend to do something in the area. Can we put a pin in that we'll, at some future episode, maybe do a summary of the AI legislation
sure.
and see what
Yep.
direction they're taking?
Privacy is going to factor into a lot of them. We know some AI bills are going to be passed and signed by the governor. In fact, in his executive order, he committed to working with the legislature to make that happen.
We appreciate you giving us some time this afternoon. Hopefully the viewers and listeners got some benefit out of it. We look forward to what the legislature is going to and the regulators are going to impose on this whole issue area.
Thanks so much.